Hello fellow film fans and up-and-coming film fans, Peter Fox here, and I'm really excited to be talking about today's video. Today I get to talk about one of my favorite countries in cinema, and one of the most important movements in film history as of recent, South Korea. Some of you may already be aware, but the film Parasite was released this year to overwhelmingly positive praise. Just about everyone I've seen has given this movie rave reviews. I have not seen a negative review for this movie yet. Wait, I take that back. I've seen one, but he doesn't count. He's a hack. Not to mention, it just surpassed The Godfather on Letterboxd for being the #1 highest rated movie of all time. For a film that hasn't even been out for a whole year yet, to surpass what is often considered the greatest American film of all time is amazing. Congratulations, Parasite. So I think now is a great time to get invested in South Korean films, for anyone who's not familiar with them. Consider this sort of a pilot or a promo for a series that I want to do. See, one question that I see brought up sometimes is, how do people get into films? What are some movies that I can watch to get me into films? And that's a really hard question, because there are so many movies out there, and I feel like even someone like me who's been watching movies for years, I'm still growing in my cinematic development. I don't feel like I can show you a movie and you'll just be like, oh, I get it now. I'm a film master. It doesn't work like that. I think you need to sort of open up to these things. Like, I'm not going to start someone off with like watching Tarkovsky or Bergman or some really weird foreign stuff. So the way I sort of interpret that question is, what are some films that can get me to appreciate film as an art form? So I want to do this series. I want to talk mainly about directors and their films that they've done, or maybe some movements, like in the case of this film. I feel like they'll mostly be directors, but I'm going to talk about one of the best movements that we have right now. What is dubbed as of recently the South Korean New Wave. Now, this really isn't that recent of a movement. It started mostly in the early 2000s, or to be more specific, 2003, the golden year for South Korea. I mean, this was an amazing year. We had 4 of the country's biggest directors release their groundbreaking hits. They released films that solidified them as amazing directors. These are some of the directors' most successful films, sometimes maybe even their most successful film ever made, and it helped catch the eyes of other people in the world. So if you're a little iffy on foreign films or any kind of art house films that may be weird, I think these films are very accessible. How do I describe a South Korean film? They are incredibly well written, beautifully shot and framed, like perfect, immaculate framing to a T. They often balance between being brutal, thrilling, dramatic, and even funny. Like, the tone of these films is just amazing. They combine so many genres and so many tones often, but it never feels muddled. Like, they have such this high energy that just keeps you in. Sometimes the plots may be a little weird, like they may be just above the belief of reality that we have, but there is like this dark comedy element that they have that really keeps you invested. They have great music, they have great vision, great directing. These films are just incredibly enjoyable, incredibly perfect. It's one of my favorite countries in cinema. I love everything that South Korea has ever put out. It's a little hard to describe a South Korean film because I definitely know it when I see it, but there is so much that makes these films. They would be complicated, but they're really not. Like, they're not full of themselves. You can still watch them and enjoy them for what they are. Anyway, let's get this started. Here are the best 4 films that come out of 2003 in South Korea. Kicking off things, we have A Tale of Two Sisters by Kim Ji-woon. One quick thing, I've been told that South Korean names are not pronounced the way that they look, but I don't want to sound racist by making up some South Korean accent. So I'm just going to say them like that. This film is a psychological horror movie, but also sort of a family drama, showcasing the different genres that South Korean films will often mesh together. I don't want to go too deep into the plot because Again, it's a very psychological movie. It's a very thrilling movie. There's a lot of twists and things that happen, things that you will not expect. One thing I will say right now is that this movie has a twist which I legitimately did not see coming. That doesn't happen to me a lot. Even if the twist is well handled and like executed well in the story, I can sometimes see them coming. This film had a surprisingly good twist, though. I was really caught off guard. This film centers around two sisters who are trying to cope with their new stepmother. They obviously don't get along. This causes some turmoil between the family. But then as it starts to go on, some strange things start to occur. Even when you think the movie is going one direction, it completely throws the rug out from under you and it goes somewhere else. This movie constantly keeps you guessing, you're constantly enthralled, and you're never confused. Despite the story and the film constantly shifting directions and perspectives, you're always invested in what's happening. Mainly because, on the surface, yeah, it seems like a typical family drama. These two girls don't like their stepmother, but then they start to be convinced that she might be a witch or something. They start to see some strange things going on in the house. Again, just an amazing screenplay. It's beautifully shot. The interiors of the house are excellent. Sets are another thing that South Korea is very good at. You want a good example of that? Go see Parasite again. A Tale of Two Sisters walks the fine line of drama and horror. It really makes you feel for the tragedy and the melancholy that these characters are going through, but it also makes you kind of unsettled and kind of nervous. You're constantly riddled with anxiety while watching the power shift from these different characters and the perspectives. A Tale of Two Sisters is creepy, unsettling, yet it's also masterfully handled. You feel for these characters, you're constantly on the edge of your seat worrying for what might happen to them. It's just a great, intense, yet emotional thriller. Something you often don't come across. Something that South Korea, while most of the films are, and even this film is, yeah, very brutal, doesn't hold back in a lot of its violent content, you still manage to take the characters and their situation, even with some little dark elements of comedy thrown in, you still manage to take their situation very seriously. A Tale of Two Sisters, Kim Ji-woon. Check out the film and check out the director. He has a lot of other great films too. The next film in 2003 is Memories of Murder, directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is also the director of, you guessed it, Parasite. This film draws a lot of similarities to an American film called Zodiac, which some of you might know. Great movie if you haven't seen it, check it out. The story involves two cops as they're trying to track down a mysterious murderer. Very basic plot, sounds familiar, but what makes this film interesting is it's not always about the murder, a lot of times it's about the lives of the detectives. Again, like Zodiac. We see the sort of unethical treatment of the police and their suspects. We see this new detective come in and constantly quarrel with the police department here, as he doesn't believe that they should torture these suspects. He has, more ethical ways of trying to find this killer. The directing is great. There's a dinner scene done in all one shot, which is just amazing. You have the chief who's in the background drunk and just flailing around or whatever, and then you have the two main characters arguing over what to do, how to catch this killer, which of their ways is the best way to catch him. There is again some kind of weird moments, some moments that are kind of tongue-in-cheek that will sort of make you chuckle, but they're also sort of, disturbing in a way. Disturbing's not the best word, but they're sort of odd, and in a story like this where people are trying to chase down this killer, it's sort of uneasy a little bit. It's sort of like uneasy laughter, I guess. But yeah, I would call this film a thriller. I think Memories of Murder is definitely a thriller, because there are scenes where they're about to catch the killer, they're figuring things out. But at heart, I strongly believe that this film is a drama. Memories of Murder is a drama about two police officers coming to grips with the fact that their methods don't work. They struggle and try to do everything in their power to just catch this killer. They get so close so many different times, they go down so many different leads and paths, but it just comes up as nothing. It's about the unattainable. It's about our protagonist's frustration with not being able to attain what they want. I can word that better. It's their struggle with the unattainable and the inevitable. It's about our struggles with trying to achieve things that we often can't. There are some things in this world which we will never know, which we will never understand. There are things in this world in which we will never do. We will try so hard, but some things are just unattainable. This may be many of your first introduction to actor Song Kang-ho, who is literally in every South Korean movie ever made. Okay, obviously not literally, but holy crap, if you journey through the South Korean new wave, you will know this actor. And I'm very glad too, because he's an amazing actor. I specifically love his arc in the film. He's very sort of maybe not a crooked cop, but, you know, like I was saying earlier, he's a bit unethical. He's very harsh to the suspects. He's not a very nice guy, despite his intentions of trying to catch this killer. But then after his journey here, after some things happen to his friends, he has a little bit of a turnaround. You can see his arc, you can see him kind of change throughout the film. He becomes a little more humble, kinder, and of course, full of regret. He looks back on this time with remorse as the things that happened, the things that he did, that even though he's changed a little now, he can't do anything to change the circumstances. He can't change the things that happen to the characters, or the victims, or with the mystery. It makes it a very difficult film, but a very enjoyable film. This is a great introduction to American audiences. It's a very American-esque kind of film in the way that it follows two cops trying to solve a murder, but it has an entirely new take on it, and it's super interesting and entertaining. It's thrilling, it's weird, it's I love these characters, I love the arcs they go through. It's a great mystery drama. Everybody needs to check it out. This brings us to our next film, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, directed by Kim Ki-duk. Now I'm going to say right off the bat here that Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring, or Seasons as some fans like to call it, is very different from the other South Korean films on here. It's not exactly the high energy, kind of genre-bending, grandiose music kind of stuff that we're used to. It's not exactly the thriller South Korean movies that we know. In fact, I don't think this film is like any other movies out there. I don't think Kim Ki-duk has ever made a movie similar to any other movie out there. Kim Ki-duk is a very idiosyncratic director. I would sometimes consider him one of my favorite directors. Some of his films are amazing, like this film is probably my favorite of his. Others of his are a little more difficult to get into. They're very weird. And not weird in a surreal way, like a David Lynch movie or something like that. Like, the films often take place in reality, but the way they're structured, he usually has characters who stay mute the whole film. They'll go through some kind of semi-realistic journey, and then a bunch of odd things happen to them. Not that weird, like, it's still kind of realistic. They're very out there plots, but they're still very realistic in a way. I know I'm coming off weird here, but anyone who knows me, please vouch for me. It is very hard to describe a Kim Ki-duk film. In that way, it's hard to guarantee if you'll like his films or not, but I think this film is a good start. Not as accessible as like a Park Chan-wook film or a Bong Joon-ho movie, but you can at least understand what's happening. If you do like these kind of films, it's a very simple, very comfortable, warm, philosophical movie. The film is very much influenced by Buddhist philosophy, which I find very interesting. We basically follow a character as he grows up, and each age is represented by one of the seasons, of course. They're films that test the human condition, like all art films are supposed to, but this one, it tests it in extraordinary circumstances. Almost like a science fiction novel, but more grounded in reality. Like, what would happen if we push the human condition to this level? If we put them in this peculiar situation, how would they react? And that's probably the most interesting thing about Kim's films. If this sounds up your alley, something you'd be interested in, then yeah, check it out. I would say, yeah, this film leans a little away from the accessible kind of films that I'm recommending here. But on the bright side, this film is not confusing. It's not self-indulgent or pretentious, at least not to me. If you're not used to these films, maybe I won't guarantee you'll like this, but I think this might be a good start. It's very humble. I really like this character's journey. I like the philosophy that is explored through this film. Being a Buddhist film, there's great shots of nature. Nature plays a very important role in this film. I love the shots of the lake, of the forest. One of my favorite shots in this film is a scene when the character goes up on a mountain and he overlooks the valley underneath him. And the lake house that he lives at is so small. It just shows how insignificant it is to everything around it. But it's not in a nihilistic way. It's like in a beautiful way. Like there's this great big world to explore going around all this stuff that we're witnessing. And if you're iffy on the whole subject matter, I really don't think you should be. There's so many films. Film is art. Art is supposed to reflect life. It's supposed to reflect ideas and philosophy. And that's very much what this film does. So, I mean, if you can just sit back, relax, try not to be so judgmental, try to be more open to it. Try to lower your expectations if you can. Not that this film is not great, but, you know, just try not to expect so much from it. Like some people might do with Citizen Kane or 2001: A Space Odyssey, I don't know. But, yeah, if you really just surrender yourself, let yourself be captivated by the beautiful cinematography, the beautiful nature, the journey of this character, and the philosophy that he learns. Let yourself be enlightened by this film. Let this film be an otherworldly experience for you. Let this film be a different metaphysical quest for you. Something that you haven't ever seen in a film. Just let that take you. This is a beautiful film. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love it to death so much. Every time I watch it, yeah, I just become enlightened. I gotta read up on some Buddhism. I love its interpretation of the themes of Buddhism also. It's not a film in which characters just spout out philosophy. It's not where, like, you just watch a character just recite random passages from Buddha, which is something that Kim Ki-duk does, is the characters often don't talk a lot. They're not dialogue heavy at all. The characters are often mute sometimes. So it's not just a retelling of Buddhist philosophy. It's very much its own interpretation of these kind of things. Check this out, and if you like it, I recommend checking out some other Kim Ki-duk films too, like 3 Iron, The Samaritan Girl, Bad Guy, Bo. I know, he's a lot more films than any of the other directors on here, so anyone wants to say in the comments some recommendations, go for it. And last but not least, saving the best for last, the truly best, the film that maybe single-handedly put South Korea on the map. The film that made its director a star. The film that became so influential to so many people all across the nation, all across the world, in America, and inspired a crappy, low-rate American remake. Do not watch Spike Lee's version. Oldboy, directed by Park Chan-wook. This was my first introduction. This was my very first South Korean film I ever saw. So if you want to start with this, go ahead. You don't have to watch these films in order. Park Chan-wook is my favorite South Korean director. Bong Joon-ho is climbing up on that list, but I really don't think he'll pass Park. Everything I've seen from Park Chan-wook, I love. Maybe some of his films I just like. Maybe they're not as great as some of the other ones, but Park Chan-wook has never made anything close to a bad film. He has never made anything close to a passable film. They are just incredibly ambitious, passionate, effortless films. His films have white-knuckle thrills, romantic dramas, side-splitting, surreal, and dark comedy, and you can find all that in his masterpiece, his name-given, game-changing film, Oldboy. This is also sometimes considered an action movie. It has what is often considered one of the best action scenes in film. Some of you may already be familiar with it. That would be the one-take hallway scene, which is just absolutely incredible and mesmerizing. It's claustrophobic. You really see the intense struggle that our protagonist is going through. He starts to get out of breath. The others start to gang up on him. It's a very breathtaking scene, almost literally. Getting a little ahead of myself here. Oldboy is a film about a man who's locked away for 15 years. He has no idea why. Then inexplicably released after all that time, and he has no idea why. Basically, the film is just a revenge plot as he tries to figure out why he was locked up, why he was released, who did this to him. The film has so many great ideas that it juggles just through the character alone. I love the scenes in which he's imprisoned. I think it captures these scenes very well as he misses so many important events that go on. Like, he has a TV in his room and he watches things like 9/11 happen and all this stuff. He basically lives through the TV. That's how he gets his knowledge. There's juxtaposition of him becoming a demon as he becomes more isolated. He just becomes more and more insane, as he most likely would be. And then the scenes when he's released, it's a great experience through the character as he starts to see all the changes that happen. That it's been 15 years since he's been out in the real world. He's so power hungry and hell-bent on revenge that he has to eat something alive, so he eats this live squid in one scene. The actor Chow Min-sik is phenomenal in this. Again, another actor, much like Song Kang-ho, one of the best South Korean actors. If you start watching more South Korean films, you're going to see a lot of this guy. He is just a powerhouse in every one of his films. He is always playing a psycho, pretty much. But it's always amazing. There's always a real character behind that. He plays these psychos with so much respect, a certain amount of restraint, where you're kind of scared of these guys, but you take them seriously as well, whether he plays a villain or a hero or a bit of both. I don't think Chow Min-sik has ever been a hero. Maybe not in the strictest sense. This is probably Oldboy's probably his most heroic role yet, and I wouldn't call him a pure of heart. This film again blew me away just in how amazing everything was presented was. The cinematography, just perfect, flawless. Park Chan-wook's framing, and some of you new may not think framing is such a big deal, like, oh, framing, you're just positioning the camera. Like, camera work is so much harder than you think. And there's so many of these scenes where they have to be positioned perfectly in order to stage the characters in the perfect way. Framing is everything to Park Chan-wook, and especially in Oldboy. The music, again, many South Korean films have they're very orchestral. They have opera singers and choir going along with this. It makes it sound very sophisticated, juxtaposed to the often awful, brutal, intense things that we're witnessing, or the very off-kilter dark humor that we see. Something else I loved about Oldboy was it just combined everything, and being at a young age when I saw it, as I was getting into cinema, I just absolutely loved it. It blew my mind seeing action and drama and comedy, just seeing so many different things jam-packed in this film, yet it never felt cluttered. It all felt like the same movie. The film is very weird, like a man being locked away for 15 years. There's a lot of things that you would question as not being realistic. The film isn't really trying to be realistic, and I think a lot of the music or the humor, it kind of offsets that. It kind of lets you know that it's fully aware of how unrealistic it is. It's going for a certain tone. This movie is just gripping in every sense of the word. It is a masterpiece. It may have won the Palme d'Or. Quentin Tarantino was on the jury table that year. I am looking it up. And I know he absolutely loved it. He actually had a lot to do with the success of the film. Okay, not the Palme d'Or. Won the Grand Prix. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. But another thing it's considered is it's very neo-noir. As I was looking on my phone, I saw it called a neo-noir film. And yeah, if you love noir movies, this is a great noir movie. It's mostly a mystery, but with, again, drama, thrills, comedy, action. This movie is everything. Everyone should see this movie. This movie is perfect. It tries to juggle so many things, and it doesn't feel cluttered. It all feels like the same story of this man who has gone insane and is so insane, hellbent on revenge, that all these things happen in his life. All these crazy things happen to him in his aftermath. The villain in this film, I won't give it away too much, but he is one of the best villains ever. He's a very jacked up person, but then again, so is our protagonist, Oh Dae-soo. Despite him being a very sick person, he has a very understandable motivation. He's a little sympathetic, despite him being completely insane and apathetic. You kind of understand him. You understand why he's doing this. There's one final scene with the character, too, that I think is just perfect. It perfectly just sums up the great tragedy that the villain went through and our protagonist went through. It's a Greek tragedy, too. It's compared to something like Oedipus Rex. But yeah, it's a Greek tragedy at the same time. It's a tragedy. It's a revenge story. It's about two people's revenge. It's about two of the most insane people you could think of and pitting them against each other until they just collide in an explosive, tragic mess. It's a devastating film at the end. It really is. Despite how easy the tone could have been at the beginning. Again, I don't know how so many South Koreans balance these genres. It's just amazing. They're so well written. Like, Oldboy has one of the best screenplays I've ever seen. Same with all these other South Korean movies. Same with Parasite, Memories of Murder, A Tale of Two Sisters. Park Chan-wook himself is probably one of my favorite screenwriters in all of cinema. I mean, you hear people talk about directors, but he writes most of his films, and the script for these movies is just amazing. Another film that I rewatched from him recently, Thirst, came out 2009. If you love Park Chan-wook, love South Korea, check that out. This is another movie that does so many different things with the vampire genre, and it does them all. It never feels cluttered. And that's the biggest challenge in writing, is to do so much and yet it doesn't feel complicated. It's something you can easily follow, something that you're easily engaged in. I'm getting way off topic. I could ramble on about just how amazing, just how much I love Park Chan-wook and Oldboy. I could sing the praises to these two all day long. I don't know what else to say. You just have to see it. You have to take my word for it. Every scene is just gripping and thrilling. It's so creative. There's so many like weird, quirky moments that just add to the story. They can... I want to say, like, it's not just for comedy. Yes, some of it's comedy, but, like, the quirky moments are not just funny. They add a sort of levity. I love films that do that, that just add... You could say, like, a Wes Anderson film or something, or Jim Jarmusch, where they just put, like, quirky, random things in there. Yeah, I guess Oldboy has something like that, but they're not always funny. They're sometimes meant to be impactful to the character. Like, they really represent something. This film is so detailed in its story and in its details, like I said. Its lead character is acted phenomenally by Chow Min-sik. There's so much care given to the cinematography and camera work. There's so much detail in the frames and in the scenes that you just have to look at. You just have to look at the architecture, the set designs, the costumes. Nothing was half-assed in this movie. It was all done to a T. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna end this before I hyperventilate. Just watch Oldboy. Another quick thing is, Oldboy is actually the second film in the Vengeance trilogy. Don't worry, the three films are not the same narrative. They don't take place in the same universe or anything like that. They're all separate films you can watch on your own. But if you want to watch the first one first, hell, if you want to see Park's first film, Joint Security Area, which is good, probably my least favorite, but it's his first film, still good. If you want to see Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, yeah, you can watch that first. But definitely check out Oldboy. Check out Kim Ki-duk's other films. Check out Kim Ji-woon and Bong Joon-ho. Bong Joon-ho has just gotten better and better since Memories of Murder, and that's like one of his best films. So yeah, check out these directors. There's probably plenty more I missed. What did I miss? What's your favorite South Korean film? What are some good starters? Are there any other South Korean films in 2003 that I may have missed? Again, if you're new to cinema and you're looking for some films to really get you into the art of cinema, stay tuned to my channel. I plan on doing a director retrospective series. I plan on going through directors and their films, because directors are the artists of cinema. I plan on doing an Akira Kurosawa video if you want to see that. If you're interested in getting into foreign movies or movies in general, Akira Kurosawa is a great place to start, so look forward to that. Also, I'm working hard on the script for my next Poet Boy video. The script is just about done. I'm proofreading it, rounding it out. I'm going to send it out to some friends to proofread it and things like that. It's almost done. I really have all the ideas there. I'm just rounding it out. And I want to start filming the next episode before the end of the year. I don't think I'll get to it before November ends. I will definitely get to it sometime in December, though. And hopefully it will be released sometime next year. Well, that about does it for me, guys. I hope I introduced you to some great new South Korean films. I hope I can get you into watching some other foreign movies. I hope I turn you on to some of your new favorite films, some films that you'll greatly enjoy. With that said, I'm Peter Fox as Cineman. That's my name now, Cineman. And I'll see you soon for more talks about movies and rants about society. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care.